It's really upsetting the Americans. They're going on social media continuously all of this past week, talking about how India is funding the Russian war, and now it's come out in the open. You have a war criminal. They term President Putin as a war criminal who cannot go to any country, so he's here in India, and India laying out the red carpet for a war criminal. This is the kind of statements that are coming out from
See,
America.
the United States top leadership exemplifies chaos, anarchy, unpredictability. It has shifted very sharply to the right wing and is today pandering to the lowest common denominator, which means the lowest common intellectual capacity. This kind of nonsense is typical in a populist order. People who have very little knowledge on the complexities of world affairs keep on screaming from the rooftop about something or the other. Let us be a little objective here. Large sections of the European Union are engaged with Russia. Many of them are buying Russian energy. The Americans are interacting with the Russians and the Chinese
Buying
and are
uranium.
buying very substantial trade relations. Thank you very much. And they are buying that. Putin has reminded us that nuclear fuel is being purchased by the Americans from Russia. Rare earths are being purchased by different countries all the time. How dare they presume to tell India or any other country what we should do or what we should not do? We don't tell anyone else. When did we last prescribe to someone else?
To Europe especially. Have
Yes,
we
we've
told-
never told them. Yeah. And yet you find that these countries, so there is near total absence of the intellect. And I bemoan that. Because foreign affairs is serious business. It is not meant for loose talk, not meant for jingoism, etc. It is something that you must take into account that there is a world order, that it is under challenge. There is a churn in the world order, and we are all part of it. All of us are taking position to safeguard our interest. In that sense, we are not different from anyone else. But we don't need to point fingers at anyone else. And the old adage, you point finger at somebody else, three fingers are pointing at you. Nobody. So I would say that we should not take this kind of social media utterances too seriously. The United States is in a mess. I'm going to say this very clearly and frankly to you. The United States is not the country we knew. It is a country devoid of principles, devoid of a moral compass. It is anarchic. You have a leader who is totally self-absorbed and self-consumed, and does very often his antics are a source of comedy and laughter, when the head of the strongest country in the world should be a source of gravitas, of intellectual capacity, a source of moderation and good sense. On the other hand, you have such daily embarrassments from the White House. So I would say that we need to keep our self-confidence in place. We are passing through a complex time. You have a period where the White House is collapsing in front of your eyes. I think this is a bad period for the Americans and a bad period for world order, but we have to go forward.
So how is West Asia seeing this? How are they negotiating? Because they also live in an area where there is constant strife. We are living in an area, in a region also where there is strife. We've just going through Operation Sindoor. How is, for example, Oman dealing with it? How is UAE dealing? How is Saudi Arabia? Because you've done postings there. You know that region very well. You've lived there. So could you tell me how they are doing? Can India learn something from them?
When I said the world is in churn, I would suggest that almost every part of the world is in some churn or the other. For example, Africa is going through extraordinary strife in Libya and in Sudan. Latin America some of their state order is fragile,
Sure.
and the Americans are not helping with the daily bombings and killings of ordinary people called drug smugglers, but actually
And
very
we don't know what's going to
ordinary.
happen in Venezuela
Yeah.
next week.
Yes, so many parts of the world are insecure. So not only is there uncertainty about world order at the apex level, even at regional level, you find a sense of disorder, a sense of insecurity. sharpening competitions, etc. So there are competitions, there are confrontations, and conflicts. These are the three C's as you go up the chain. West Asia is extremely fragile. It is extremely, the outlook is extremely uncertain. They have gone through a searing experience in terms of the mass murder carried out by Israel in Gaza. 70,000 people killed right in front of our eyes, overwhelmingly women and children, serving no strategic purpose that we can see. Basically, an attempt by the Israelis to extinguish the Palestinian resistance physically, just as Hitler wanted to extinguish the Jewish question by extinguishing the Jews. Exactly in the same way, mass murder is carried out, genocide is carried out. And my simple point would be this: genocide doesn't help, because in the case of the Jews themselves, there were 6 million of them were killed in 6 years, and yet within 3 years of the end of the Second World War, they had their state in 1948. So what did it serve? So I would say this: where the West Asians are concerned, they are extremely insecure. None of them ever, when they were constructed by the retreating British Raj over there also, none of the states that emerged could be called internally secure. Mm-hmm. They were meant to depend for their security on the Western powers. And it is true of Pakistan, of Israel, and all the Gulf countries and large parts of West Asia as such. Today, what is troubling them are the following. Not only do you have an extremely aggressive in Israel, which has made it very clear by attacking Doha that no target in West Asia is outside their scope. So even the Gulf monarchies have been told, regardless of the fact that you are close to the Americans and otherwise you pursue moderate policies, even you can be attacked by us. Iran obviously has already been attacked. The Americans are not seen as credible security guarantors. So you have a churn in world order, a competition at the apex level between China and the United States, and also between the Russians and the Western alliance. You also have Israel cleaning up West Asia of anyone who threatens the Western alliance. Please recall, Israel's actions in West Asia are part of the larger effort being made by the Western alliance to clean out all those who oppose their hegemony. So in the case of Europe, it is the Ukraine war. In the case of West Asia, it is the Gaza war. And in the case of China, not yet a military conflict, but competition in regard to economic issues, technological issues, logistical connectivity matters. This is still the West asserting that they will not allow their hegemony to be compromised. These are the three aspects. Now, the countries in West Asia don't know which way to go, particularly because in Donald Trump, you have an unreliable and unpredictable leader. So what they are doing is the short-term arrangement, reaching out to Donald Trump, basically pandering to his ego, making him feel good, giving him the luxury, the pomp, the luxury,
Airplanes.
And basically making
an airplane.
And gifts.
Yeah.
He's a very, very corrupt individual. We know that. And therefore, they are pandering to that. But it is very clear that they do not see the United States as a credible security partner.
That's a very crucial point. If that is the case, then countries like Japan, Taiwan, they'll all be looking, right? If America is not a security provider to West Asia, how are they going to be? How is it going to be a security provider to us?
You are absolutely right to raise this issue. And if I was sitting in Tokyo or Seoul, I would be concerned. You see, what you are seeing, the whole order that is, so West-led world order, had certain attributes and certain givens that were taken for granted. And you can say the Europeans never developed a defense budget because the Americans were looking after that. The Japanese had self-defense forces. Korea, of course, built up its forces, but
North
they were
Korea, yeah.
directed at North Korea, no one else. Taiwan was sitting complacently pretending to be independent. It's not an independent country. It's a very obviously a province of China, and the international community, including the Americans, accept that. Now, in this scenario, obviously, there is grave uncertainty. Therefore, what is happening is many countries are now boosting their defense budgets. They are preparing for a post-US arrangement or scenario in world affairs. Japan is also building up its own defense budget and defense capabilities. Korea already is very substantial. Australia is also looking at opportunities where it can become a more credible player. So all countries are preparing for a post-US order. What the Gulf countries are doing, but they buy American equipment with no intention of really using it. Buying American equipment basically enables them to bribe the American industry and make it their strategic partner so that they are able to make the American president feel good. He's getting, how Donald Trump says, jobs, billions dollar years, billion. They're even talking $1 trillion. None of that money exists. But for the moment, they please the American president. In the case of Japan, there is another aspect which we must look at. More and more, the old traditional democracies are shifting towards populism, and that too right-wing populism. So you find it is true of Europe. Now, and in the United States, it's already in place. Hard right-wing populism. Many countries of Europe are coming up. Democratic governments are concerned very deeply about the challenge from the far right, so they are adopting some of the agenda of the far right in that regard. It is in this context that you not only have a political and defense and security related churn, you have domestic issues in almost every country that is a democracy. So you have that as a source of grave uncertainty, and many countries are now pandering to this. For example, issues relating to immigration, race, faith. What happened to that liberal order?
Yeah.
We never saw any evidence of it. It just disappeared in front of our eyes. And you have the rise of xenophobia and jingoism. So it is in this background that Japan has become a very aggressive role player. The new prime minister is pandering, I think, to a certain extent to her.
Like when we were talking about, America not being the security provider anymore, and then the new national security doctrine is out just a couple of hours ago, so I'm not going to discuss that because I haven't read the entire document. I've only read excerpts of it. But it is that America is no longer going to go into theaters of war, which is not in their realm. It's a relook. They don't see China anymore as their, as a prime aggressor against their way of life. There's a complete shift that is there in their security doctrine. The world is also watching. If the security doctrine of America changes so radically, they have also got to change theirs, right? But for countries of the ASEAN region, they can't make that choice now to say, oh, okay, so America's not our security provider, let's look towards China. Can't do that. Even though China is the only security provider other than America right now at this stage. So how does West Asia look at it? How does East Asia look at it? How should India look at it?
I would clarify to you step by step.
Right, sir.
Firstly, the perception that the United States is not a credible security provider in any area of the world is now accepted.
Okay.
It's now an accepted view. I'm asking you as a layperson and me as a layperson, would you ever depend on the Americans for anything that was important to you? Given the state of affairs in the United States, a completely chaotic administration that changes its mind from time to time, place to place, its priority is completely skewed. It is a source of instability. The rest of the world has not yet prepared itself for its own security. Therefore, while the earlier arrangements and alignments are unraveling, new arrangements and alignments have not come up. We are in that churn.
Okay.
We are in that churn. Therefore, the world is insecure. Now, what the countries have to do is to function at three levels: the short term, the medium term, and the long term. In the short term, more or less, people take a band-aid approach, a quick fix solution. Buy some equipment here, some equipment there, so that in case you have an immediate security threat, you are protected. But you have to think in terms of the medium term. In the medium term, very slowly, more and more fresh relationships are being considered in the security arena. India is looking at Gulf countries in that regard. ASEAN is looking at various countries itself. ASEAN itself, let me clarify, is not the solid, united, resilient entity it used to be. Because it has differences. I mean, 10 countries can't always be agreeing. The world
But that
order.
is their, वो उनकी खासियत है ना, that their diversity is what
Yes,
holds
but
them
now
together.
you have serious issue. Myanmar is a major issue. The problem with regard to China and its claims in the South China Sea. All of these are so the medium term will call for certain arrangements which you will start from now, not necessarily show your hand, but you build towards the future. I would say the engagement with Russia and the engagements with China that we have started are part of this arrangement over a longer term.
The flexible approach.
The flexible approach over a longer term.
Okay.
And then you will have, I don't want to go far into the future because I don't know tomorrow and day after. So I'm not going to go there. But I'm going to talk about the short term. I can talk about the short term and speculate about the midterm.
Okay.
Say midterm about 5 years, short term 1 year plus, midterm 5 years. 10 years is long term. I don't want to go to long term. So what is happening is the countries all over the world, every country is today applying its mind to see how they can put in place new arrangements domestically and regionally to protect their medium-term interests. This means a diversion from the budget into certain areas you might not have thought of before, particularly in the case of India, defense capabilities. After all, one message that Op Sindoor has given us, and that is that technology, defense technology is burgeoning and becoming more complex and more lethal.
Yeah.
And we have to worry about it. So all of these are, so countries are looking at that.
So when we do emergency purchases, it doesn't need to be aligned with which way we tilt or which way we just do it. It's completely.
See, what happens is every country.
We buy from Europe, we buy from Israel, we buy from.
That is for
wherever.
the immediate or short term. You see what happens, all countries are now looking at significantly upgrading their capabilities. This is because of technology. This is expensive business. This is really Firstly, war has changed. Technology is a major role player. Drones are major role players in this. You don't have those old mass tanks going into massive battle array. Those theaters are gone.
And West Asia woke up to that with the pager.
With this,
that,
So all of this are technology.
Technology.
Secondly, therefore, the world over is looking at how we can prepare ourselves. Short term, protect yourself so that in case there is something stupid happening. But really speaking, the mind is focused on the midterm. Capabilities at home, which is expensive business. If I was sitting in India, such a large country, we have challenges which are both terrestrial as well as maritime. And of course, both need the air force. So you have very expensive proposition right on. The second is alignments. Building up alignment. Now what has happened with India is India has alignments but not alliances. We don't go for alliances. From 1947 till today, alliances is where you are part of a compact and you are a defense or some other compact, firm compact.
BRICS, Quad, these are alliances?
These are alignments.
Alignments.
Because there is no compulsion to accept a consent. There's no.
Okay.
There not. So ASEAN is an alliance, but it's an economic alliance. But alignments is what we do. India will need, when you have new challenges of the kind you never faced before, you also need to think new thoughts. India has up to now always looked at relationships that are bilateral and transactional. In the Gulf, in Southeast Asia, Central Asia, we don't look at regions in a collective sense. That, to my mind, is outdated. The way China, when China came to the Gulf, India has been in the Gulf for millennia. China came to the Gulf like in 15, 20 years ago. And China has been looking at the region as a whole. So you have dialogue platforms, China and the Gulf, China and the Arab League, besides bilateral transactions and bilateral relations. India doesn't. So you cannot be a strategic role player. See, you have relations with Saudi Arabia, you have relations with the UAE, you have relations with Israel, relations with Iran, but each of them is bilateral. Therefore, India has shied away from playing any security-related role in any region, despite the fact that these regions are crucial for our national interest. But we mortgage this responsibility to other players. Like China is a major player in West Asia. That place is rightfully ours. We should be there, but we have shied away from that. I would therefore suggest that over the medium term and possibly crawling into the long term, we have to rethink a strategic approach. You cannot continue the old way of bilateral and transactional. Countries want, if you want security in an alignment or an alliance, they also want the same security from you.